Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna T540i top handle battery powered chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it just doesn't seem to run smooth, almost as though there's the wrong pitch chain on the sprocket. So let's just run this thing once and see what it feels like. So, I know you couldn't feel it, but I could. Kind of like a grinding sensation, vibration. Looking at the sprocket from underneath, this is what we find. There's the plane that the sprocket should be bolted to, the side of the saw. And that's the plane that the sprocket is actually riding on. There's a big angle there. Now, it could be the sprocket's worn or something's wrong with the motor or bushing. Not sure yet what's going on, but as you tension the chain, it pulls the sprocket out of plane. So, we'll get this side cover off of here and take a closer look. Off comes the bar and chain. And it looks like the motor's loose. Just going to clean up a little bit of schmutz here. So, in fact, there are 3 screws that bolt the motor to the side of the chassis there, the crankcase. And they're not there. They're gone. So I'm not sure why all 3 screws are gone. If there was some vibration going on. If someone's been in here before. I mean, this is one of the first T540s to come out. It's an older saw. We're going to open it up here and take a closer look and see if there's anything to see. And because that motor was loose, maybe there's some damage or something going on in there. So all these screws, they're either T25 or T27s. They're not T20s. I wanted to say something about battery-powered chainsaws and feeling vibrations and such. We're trying to detect problems with, if someone puts a 3/8 chain on a 325 sprocket, it's obviously going to eat up the sprocket and wreck the chain. But sometimes people do that for a while, then they bring it into you to fix, and things are getting worn in a little bit. But there's a vibration or a sensation where you can feel that. But there's also the pulses from the engine that you can feel. But with a battery-powered saw, I mean, anything wrong with the bar and chain, that really stands out. If there's a sprocket problem. Because the motor is perfectly smooth, you can feel everything that's going on with the bar and chain. So once we have all the screws out, the top half just lifts right off. And you can see that the motor is loose in there and allowed to move around. And you probably can also see that there's a fin missing from that cooling fan. Taking a closer look at the threads in the motor, visually they look good. So yeah, they, putting a new fan on here, it looks like it's a press fit. A new fan is about $6. I don't have one in stock. When the customer brought me this saw, they pretty much expected that it was junk. If it's going to cost a lot, don't fix it, that kind of thing. And, it looks like 3 screws is gonna fix this thing, so we're keeping the cost down, right? We're going to put some Loctite on 3 new screws and run them in here. And then we'll take a closer look and see what that sprocket looks like. And I don't know how long this thing's been flopping around in there. I don't know if the chassis or crankcase has got any damage to it or wear, or maybe there's a broken chunk I haven't seen in here. We're going to kind of torque this thing down pretty tight. That looks good. And that looks good. The thing's squared up really nice now. So we should be able to prevent any future weird wear on that chain or sprocket. You know, maybe this thing just was over torqued, the chain, all the time. I don't know. Now there's a fin missing. Well, which came first, the broken fin or the missing screws? Because I'm thinking, you know, that broken fin is going to cause a vibration. And I don't have a new fan in stock, so we're going to try and balance this one out a little bit. Just so happens that there's a even number of fins on there. And there still is now. I just broke off another fin 180 degrees away from the broken one. So how's that for a fix? Let me know down in the comments what you think about that, if you would have done the same thing or not. So now we're going to put together the trigger parts that fell out when I tipped the thing over. First the trigger goes in, and then the safety operator presence detent. You'll notice that trigger, it does actuate a switch on the module there. And it also has a magnet that swings past the sensor to control the variable speed. So there's 2 different things going on with that trigger. We got everything kind of lined up now. Just double checking, kind of a sanity check here, make sure that there's no other damage, or make sure I'm not forgetting anything. And when you try to drop the top half onto the bottom half, you got to line up the brake handle with that slot in that brake mechanism. So that's got to get lined up for sure. And then there's that gray Husky logo piece over the battery compartment. That's got to get lined up. And all your trigger parts need to still stay in place. Just checking the trigger function there after I've put the half on, and looks good. So we're going to run these screws home here. Get a couple of them started. Yeah, everything seems alright. You know, there's no gaps in the 2 halves. This hand grip also doubles as part of the operator presence function. I'm not a big fan of this setup where you have to push that lever forward and then down. But that's what they got. And that hand grip is what controls that. Hint, hint. Alright, everything seems alright here. We're going to throw the bar and chain on it. And then I'm going to put a battery in it. And then I'm going to run it. And I'm going to see how that thing feels. If it's nice and smooth like a battery saw should be. Or if I got some kind of weird vibration from breaking that fin off of there. So that's all I'm going to have for you on the Husqvarna T540iXP battery-powered top panel chainsaw. That was making some grinding noises. Thanks for watching. Later.